Hello, Tennessee coaches and friends of ICF Tennessee. Welcome to International Coaches Week. We are just so excited to bring you our speaker today, and we are celebrating this week by sharing with you one of our expert coaches, Jen Frank. Professional coaching has been just something that's happened for many, many years with ICF, and it has the power to transform individuals, organizations, and even the world. And with ICF Tennessee, we celebrate as well this week because we are committed to making coaching an integral part of a thriving society. That's what we do. And we know that to accomplish this is to make coaching more accessible to all people. And so we endeavor to prepare you for a future in a fast paced, ever changing landscape and help others understand and explore what coaching really is, and the possibilities that it provides. That's why we're celebrating all around the globe. It's celebrated. So today we are again excited, whether you're on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook Live, we're excited to have Jen Frank here in our series of Connect, Engage, and Grow Together. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Anna.
Jen is a Memphis based professional certified coach who does executive and career coaching. And whether leading a workshop or facilitating a retreat or working with an individual client, the core of Jen's work is about personal and professional development, as well as empowering people to take charge of their lives and their careers and to be great leaders. And so it's Jen's privilege to work with these individuals and organizations in the Memphis area and beyond to do their best work. And so she'll share more about this, but for more information on executive or career coaching, reach out to her at jenfrankcoaching.org. I want to allow Jen as much opportunity to share this morning. Welcome again, Jen. We're so looking forward to your presentation on the 4 components of success. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Anna. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here. When I was asked to present something for International Coaches Week, the first thing I thought of was a model that my mentor introduced to me 10 years ago. And it's a framework for discussing success. And I often use this with clients. So this framework, it's from a classic Harvard Business Review article. It's the work of Laura Nash and Howard Stevenson, and it's called Success That Lasts. So if you Google HBR, Harvard Business Review, HBR, Success That Lasts, you'll find the article. So in that article, there's a lot of science on their research. But today I'm going to walk you through the framework, and I'm going to tell you specifically how I use this with clients. So I'm kind of like your cliff notes for this article. So 10 years ago, this framework helped me to pinpoint why, when I was hitting my goals, I didn't feel successful. Okay. This article was published 20 years ago. And I've been using it for the last 10 years. It's still very relevant today, and it's something I use regularly with clients. So thank you for showing up today. I'm glad we can celebrate Coaches Week with some learning and sharing. And I'm interested, if you can tell me in the chat, I'm interested to see how much attention can you bring for the next 45 minutes to an hour? How much attention can you bring? Scale of 1 to 10. I will endeavor to be a 10 today, but I am interested to see in the chat what you have to say. It can be really hard to stop working because we do work so hard, and it can be hard to turn off those distractions like email and like the phones. So my phone is put away right now. It's not even in my eye line because I know that the research shows if you can see your phone, your brain is saying phone, phone, phone. So I have put that away. So I don't think I see anything in the chat, but we'll go ahead from here. And whatever your answer is for how much attention you can give during the next hour, that's exactly right, right? There's no wrong answer here. But I do encourage you throughout today, please use the chat. Ask questions throughout anytime. It'll be more engaging if you can participate. And I want to tell you a story now and take you back to early 2015. So it was in 2015. I'd been coaching full-time for over a year. I was on track to hit my 18-month goals, and I've been working really hard. I'd overextended myself. I don't think I'd had a day off in a couple of weeks. And, being self-employed and a newer coach, I worried about, my finances. And so one day I'm sitting there and I have a stack of checks in my hand because we still had checks. It was 2015. So I have a stack of checks in my hand to deposit. I have as much work as I can handle. I'm meeting my financial goals, and I felt kind of miserable. And I think the last thing I would have described myself as was successful. So I met with my mentor about this, and she introduced Nash and Stevenson's work to me. And I immediately saw that I had fallen into a trap. And that trap was that success equals achievement. Okay. And when in truth, success is made up of 4 things. Achievement is only one of them. Okay. So here's what Nash and Stevenson said. And I'm going to read you a very short quote from their article. They said, "We were interested in real, enduring success, where getting what you want has rewards that are sustainable for you and those you care about. This type of attainment delivers a sense of legitimacy and importance. Its satisfactions endure far beyond the momentary rewards of a bonus or a new position. Lasting success is emotionally renewing, not anxiety provoking." I like that last sentence. Lasting success is emotionally renewing, not anxiety provoking. So these researchers noted that we need a framework for success, because when we kind of have only a single accomplishment, it can't satisfy our complex needs and desires. All right. So we need this framework that can handle that. When I accomplish one goal, 5 more pop up over here, and then my definition of success changes. Okay. So this flexible framework, it allows us to think about success for people who have different goals and different definitions of success. And then it allows for those goals and those definitions of success to change over time. Okay. So Nash and Stevenson, they went ahead and they identified what they called the 4 irreducible components of enduring success. And they said we need to hit on all 4 of these with regularity to feel satisfied and for that satisfaction to endure, so that we feel successful over time. So those 4 components are not just achievement, but also happiness, significance, and legacy. And if you could go ahead and share the screen so we can see what their framework looked like, that would be great. I want to show everybody what they called the personal kaleidoscope. This is super complicated, but we're going to walk through it and dig down into it a little deeper. But you can see here that there are 4 enduring components of success there. We've got happiness, achievement, significance, and legacy. And those are those green and purple round spaces. And then to make it more complicated, they introduced the 4 life domains. And they said, let's look at each of these areas of success in light of the 4 life domains: self, family, work, and community. Okay, those are the little white boxes. And I'll talk more about those in a moment too. So when we add, though, these components of success to the 4 life domains, we end up with this thing that looks like a kaleidoscope. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this metaphor of the kaleidoscope, because we're coaches and we love metaphors. The 4 components of success are the main chambers in the kaleidoscope. Okay, and then we've got the 4 life domains, and we end up with these 16 main areas in the kaleidoscope. And then your goals and your priorities and your activities, those are like the pieces of glass that you drop into the kaleidoscope that, make it look unique to you, your goals, your activities. All right. And then to further extend this metaphor, what do you do with a kaleidoscope? Well, typically we hold it up to the light, right? And we see, does this still look pleasing? Is this still the right mix of goals and activities? And if it's not, what do? We turn it. Okay. So this framework, it provides a structure that holds all these disparate activities together, and it allows for changes over time. So you can continually add new and different goals and activities within the four components of success. And you can keep looking at it, though, as a big picture that looks proportionally pleasing to you. Okay. And everybody's going to have a different idea of what that should look like. So we're going to talk more about the kaleidoscope later, but for right now, we can go ahead and unshare it, and we'll come back to it later. So that's the basic premise. And it's a lot when you first see the kaleidoscope. And I don't introduce the kaleidoscope to my clients right off the bat because honestly, it can be a little overwhelming. So when my clients work with me, we start with 4 life domains instead. And I think this is an easier way to ease in to the model. And when I start with any new client, we have a discovery process, like most of you probably have, or all of you probably have. And one of the things they do during the discovery process is they fill in a balance wheel. And you probably have seen a balance wheel. Sometimes it's called the wheel of life. It looks something like this. It's got these 8 chambers here, and they rate how they feel about those different areas of their life in the current moment. Okay, so the balance wheel is a really good tool, I think, for uncovering pain spots that are occurring in the present. Okay, but it introduces those 8 areas, and it implies that those are the right 8 areas, right? And that we've called them the right thing that's meaningful to the other person, and that they're all the same size. So are they all the same importance? Kind of implies that. It even implies that maybe we should spend the same amount of time in each of those 8 areas and give equal amounts of time and energy, right? And probably not. So I think the problem sometimes when we use the word balance is it sets up this idea that everything has to be equal, and that's kind of anxiety producing. But the truth is that it's not how we live our lives. Each of us creates harmony in our life and lives in different ways. And so everyone's combination of how they want to spend their time and energy and where to feel successful is going to be different. So what I do is I give definitions for the 4 life domains, right? And that's just, it's just self, family, work, and community. I define those a little bit for my clients. And then I give them an opportunity to design their lives. Okay. And this is basically them creating their own balance wheel is what this is. So they get to decide, how they want to draw the 4 life domains. And we draw them proportional to how do you want to spend your waking life energy. Okay. So they get to decide that. And then which activities actually belong in each life domain. And they get to decide that. All right. So I usually have my clients create 2 drawings, and it's a current state drawing and then a future design drawing. Okay. And then we discuss what goals they need to set so they can start moving from that current state life design to the ideal life design that they want. And we identify some small actions that they can take. Okay. So that's how I handle the life design with clients. Now I'll show you one that I did back in 2015. Okay. This is how I drew things. And this is my ideal state based on the fact that I had been overworking. Okay. Overachieving in the work area. All right. So here's my life design. Yeah, there we go. It looks like that. Okay. So in response to the fact that I've been overworking, I put my self domain as foundational. So my self domain here now supports my work, which is up here. Okay. All right. This is proportional how I wanted to spend my time as well. And this was the early days of my business where everything that I was doing out in the community, whether it was, attending events or presenting or doing some work with pro bono clients, maybe if I was volunteering, everything I was doing in the community was kind of strategic, and it was to help my new business. So I put my community domain inside my work domain. I wouldn't draw it that way today, but at the time, that's what I was doing. Okay, so that's fine. And then another thing that I did that was very specific to me at the time was my family and friends domain over here. I drew this line is wavy, kind of permeable, because my friendships were so important and they fed myself so much that I went ahead and I drew that as a little bit permeable. Okay. But overall, when I looked at this felt proportionally pleasing to me. And all those little words in there are those activities that I was doing. Okay. And that supported me and made me feel good. So I got to decide what those activities were. So, and they were things that you would expect. So under self, I had things like self-care and meditation and yoga and walking and writing and reading and, crafting and spending time with friends and that kind of stuff. So, and whatever that is for you, right, that'll be unique to you. So the important thing is that when you draw this, you draw it proportional to how you want to spend your waking life energy, and that the activities or people that you want to spend time with, that they are represented in your drawing. Okay, so I invite you to just kind of take a minute here, maybe sketch a little ideal life design. You don't have to put all the activities in, but how would you draw that? How would you draw that today? What proportion of your time do you want to go towards your work, towards your family and friends, towards yourself, and towards your community? Sometimes we see life designs and there's this one little tiny sliver in the life design, and that's the self for the person. And right, as if you see that with a client, usually, that leads to a discussion about self-care, right? Or we can see work overtaking things, or sometimes community overtakes family and friends. So just notice what that proportion is. And if you're willing to share in the chat, that would be great. I'd love to see, something that you're noticing when you draw your life design, and it's like, oh, maybe this area needs a little bit more attention. Okay, so if you want to, you don't have to share your drawing in the chat, but if you're willing to say what area might need more attention for you in the chat, that would be great. So when I was in coaching school, we always called this eating our own dog food. I don't know if you've heard that phrase or not, but that's where I learned it, eating your own dog food. So as a coach, like you see that I've done these exercises too. I don't give my clients an exercise that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. So I'd be interested to see what your life design is revealing to you. And is there an area that needs a little bit more of your time? Okay. So once your clients have done some life design work like this, when they see those 4 life domains, self, family, work, community, come up in the kaleidoscope, now they're more familiar with some of the kaleidoscope. The whole thing isn't new. It's like, I already know these life domains. So you're not introducing quite so much all at once. And I find that can help a little bit, so it's not overwhelming. So I'll pause here for just a moment to see if there are any questions about the 4 life domains or life design, or how I'm using that with my clients. So if there is anything that should pop up on my screen, but if there's any questions about the 4 life domains or life design, please feel free to put that into the chat, and I'm happy to answer those. You can also hold those till the end. That is totally fine. If there's anything particular that resonates with you, or that you just want to underscore, feel free to use the chat throughout. Okay. So imagine you've done some life design, and now your client understands the 4 life domains. And then I tell my client what the 4 components of success are: achievement, happiness, significance, and legacy. And I reveal the kaleidoscope. It's not such a big surprise now. So I will ask you to go ahead and share the kaleidoscope again on the screen so we can see this model again. And we'll dig a little deeper into the kaleidoscope. So I'm going to tell you about a client I had many years ago, and her name was Lauren, and she was hitting all 4 areas of success in this kaleidoscope in one domain, family. So she was hitting happiness in the family domain, achievement in the family domain, significance in the family domain, and legacy in the family domain. And she didn't feel successful. And it's because she was really only satisfying about 25% of the model. And it's hard to feel successful if we're not touching more of this model regularly. So she was a mom to 3 girls, and she was waiting for her youngest girl to go to school so she could go back to work. And her youngest was going to go to school the next year. But the truth was that she loved working, and she missed working, and she wanted to work. So she's a great mom, but she didn't feel successful, right? We sent her back to work for 4 hours a week, 4 hours. And she felt satisfied and successful going back to work 4 hours a week, because once she went back to work, she had something for herself, her adult self. So now she's starting to hit around this model in the self domain. She's hitting more of those components of success in the self domain. And she's got work. So she's hitting more with work. And she's out in her community in a really different capacity. So she's hitting more of the community domain also in these components of success. Small changes can make a huge difference, right? 4 hours a week. To do that, she had to put her daughter, I think, in a gymnastics program, which her daughter happened to love. So she didn't have to feel so guilty about that, right? But just going back to work 4 hours a week had her hitting more of these components of success, more of the life domains, hitting more of the full model. And that's what this model can help you with your clients is when I'm doing so well in certain areas, why don't I feel successful? And it can help show what's being neglected. What's being neglected. So my workaholic meltdown back in 2015 was because I was super overachieving in the component of achievement in the life domain of work. I was hanging out in 1/16 of the model. Not a recipe for success at all. So I was hitting other areas in the kaleidoscope, but not with regularity. All right. I was way too focused in one very specific area. So that's why I didn't feel successful. And contrary to popular belief, just doing work you love isn't necessarily going to make you feel successful because it neglects so many areas. And we are really complex creatures. And a lot of times we have competing goals and competing desires. For example, work and family, right? So usually a single goal, it's not gonna get you what you need to feel successful. So here's what we want to remember about this is that we need to hit all 4 success components with regularity to feel successful. And the more life domains we hit, the more successful we'll feel. Okay. And here's the secret. What successful people do is they deliberately impose limits. Okay. They deliberately impose limits. They do just enough and they move on to the next thing. They work on something and as satisfaction starts to come up for them, they move to the next thing. So if you're a recovering perfectionist like me, or your client is a perfectionist, they're going to have a hard time feeling successful because that idea of just enough is kind of horrifying to a perfectionist. It's like, well, I do, and you can overdo, right? But it's going to be really hard to feel successful if you are trying to make every single thing you do perfect, because you're not going to move around this model and touch all the areas as often. Okay. So remember, this model is research-based. The people that were studied, that were successful, right? You would agree that they were successful and they didn't get there by being perfectionists. So the successful people, they did a couple specific things. Okay. The first thing that successful folks did was they had a really broad definition of what success looked like. It was not tied to a single goal. All right. So they had a broad definition that factored all the components in. All right. And their examples of success in the 16 areas, those varied wildly. Some of these were small goals, small activities, short term, and some were larger. But they did not set maximal goals in every single component of success, right? They had a mixture of goals and activities. Okay. And whatever that mix was for them, it was pleasing to them. So again, we're back to this idea of, can I look at the big picture? Is it proportionally pleasing to me? And that's what this model can really allow for. Is it allows for you to decide what works for you, and it can be applied to all kinds of individuals and be, uniquely tailored to them. So how do you use this kaleidoscope with your clients? Like, what do you actually do with this thing? Okay. The first thing I would probably do just to get them used to the kaleidoscope is to say, what's this active goal we're working on together in coaching, right? What's that active goal that we've got going? And look at it and say, what areas of components of success does this goal touch? Right? Where does this really fit most strongly for you? And hopefully the goal touches multiple areas, right? Happiness, achievement, significance, legacy. So hopefully that goal that they're working on feels significant to them. It feels like they're achieving something. It makes them happy. Maybe it increases their legacy. And then you can also see how many of those life domains are getting touched in those components of success. So you might have one goal that touches 6 or 7 areas or more or less. If you have a goal that doesn't touch any of these areas, I would be surprised if it was a worthy goal. I'm not sure what that goal would be. Somebody can think of one. Please put that in the chat. I would be really interested. So as for homework that I assign my clients around the personal kaleidoscope, I'm going to be honest, it is not easy to fill this thing in. I don't ask people to do that. Once in a while, there's somebody whose brain loves a graphic representation like this. Well, have at it. Go for it. You can fill that in. I think that's great. That I don't ask my clients to do that. There's just too much overlap and it gets confusing. And most people aren't wired to fill in this graphic representation with these 16 areas. So what I normally suggest for my clients for homework is that they just journal. Just journal on this. For example, choose one component of success and then journal about each life domain. Okay, so they might start with happiness. What does that look like in the self domain? What does it mean for me to have happiness in the self domain? What does happiness look like in my family and friends domain? What about work? What does work happiness look like? And what does community happiness look like? Okay, so your clients can't get this wrong, right? We're making space for their thinking. We're making space for their insights to come up. That's all. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of what this looked like when I journaled on it in 2015. Yes, I still have my notes from 2015. I might have a paper problem. I have not leapt into the digital age. I still do keep paper, but I'm glad I still have this. So here's what I wrote about happiness in 2015. And I said, these are just little snippets because when you journal, right, there's a lot of stuff in there. And it's not all equally enlightening, but these are a couple snippets from what I wrote about happiness in 2015. So I said, happiness is spending time with friends, having adventures, and feeling fine about doing nothing. Happiness is within my reach now if I prioritize and calendar my free time and keep my self-care up. Okay. Remember, at this time, I was hanging out in work achievement. That's where I was. So this is what I had to say about happiness. I'll share one other snippet, and this is from what I wrote about achievement. Here's what I had to say about achievement at that time. I said, growth is a value for me. True. I need to be learning new information, new skills, and new things about others and myself. Growth contains awareness. I don't want to be stagnant, predictable, or have all the answers. I want to always feel wonder and awe in the world. And then below that, I wrote clue. I guess I was trying to give myself a clue. Clue, make time for nature and play and doing nothing. So when I looked back on what I had written about these two different success components, I was seeing a similar sort of theme, that I needed more time in my schedule for nothing in particular, but making some space for fun, what I think is fun, right? Whatever those adventures in nature look like, or time with my friends looked like, or doing nothing. I need to allow myself to not have a plan for every second of my day. So there was room for spontaneity and room for some adventure. Okay. And so what this journaling does is it makes the space for those insights to arise. It's not an action plan. It's just to let the ideas flow. And, maybe some specific actions might have come out of that for me. I probably scheduled some time in my calendar. That's probably actually around the time when I said, I'm not going to work on Sundays. And then years later, I said, I'm not going to work on Saturdays. Right. So those are my examples for you. But in the spirit of eating our own dog food, I would say, it's your turn. Think about jotting down a few thoughts about one of these components of success, and see what comes up for you. I'm happy to see anything that comes up in the chat, but I do spend a little bit of time choosing a component of success to journal on, and you can walk through the life domains as well with this. And then you'll know what it's like when you ask your clients to do it, but it may reveal something to you. So after your clients do some homework, they journal on the components of success, at their next session, ask them, what insights did you have, right? If you have other questions that you can think of for your clients, you can put those in the chat. I'd love to see them. I've got a few examples here for you. It's whatever resonates with you and the work you've been doing with that client, of course, and what your style is too. But, you might ask something like, which component of success feels most important to you right now? Why? Another area of questions, in what areas are you overachieving? Where do you need to cut back? What would just enough look like here? Right? Because what we saw with this research is that successful people did just enough, and then they moved to the next thing. They didn't overachieve or perfect anything, right? So what would just enough look like for you? Especially if you've got those perfectionists. This could also reveal what's missing, right? What components or domains need more of your attention right now? What's a small action you might take to satisfy that area? Because the other thing we see with this model is we don't need a maximal goal in every single area. We just need to be touching on things, even if it's lightly. So there might be small actions that can satisfy some of these areas. I think it's interesting too. What activities are you spending a lot of time on that don't fit anywhere in this model? And how might you reduce those activities? If there are these things that they don't make you feel successful, is it a good use of your time? So when we think about something like social media, and we think about, let's just say Facebook and Instagram, okay? So if I'm spending 3 hours a night doom scrolling on Instagram, and just looking at videos of animals or something, does that make me feel more successful? Does that feed something in me? And if it doesn't, what do I want to do about that? But on the flip side, let's say I usually sit down after dinner and relax, and I spend, 15 or 20 minutes on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm catching up with friends and family and people and events going on in my community. And that actually hits my self domain and happiness. It hits my family domain and happiness. It hits my community domain and happiness. Maybe it feels significant to me and family. Maybe I even feel like I'm achieving something by staying in touch with those friends and family, right? So some of our activities, it's like some of them can be really worthwhile, And then if we take it too far, they don't add to our success. So how much is just enough, right? So we can play with that a little bit too. I have one other way that I also use this framework, and this I use life design and the success kaleidoscope, and I use it with the topic of self-care. And I have a presentation I do called Self-Care and the Successful Life. And the premise of it is that in order to be successful, we must take care of ourselves, right? So sometimes we think, well, once I'm successful, then I'll do, I'll go get a massage or I'll do my self-care then. It's like, no, you're not going to feel successful if you ignore yourself, because it's 25% of this model. And we know if we're ignoring 25% of this model, we're going to have a hard time feeling successful. So that's another way. Maybe it gives you an idea for some questions you might ask your clients. But what this framework does is it gives you permission to stop overachieving, stop devoting your maximum effort to one area of your life. Okay. It invites you to have some balance and some harmony. And it allows for you and your goals and priorities and your definition of success to change over time. Okay. So this is a powerful tool to use with your clients as you explore how they define success for themselves and how that's evolving for them. So we can go ahead and unshare the kaleidoscope. As I mentioned to you, if you want to find that article, you can. It's just Google HBR, Success That Lasts, and it'll come up. The authors are Nash and Stevenson. So I'm going to wrap up with a couple more minutes of stuff, but if anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer that. If you have something about the kaleidoscope or the 4 domains of success, happy to answer any questions. And if there's anything you want to put in the chat, that is fine as well. I'm happy to hear your thoughts and to address questions. Karen says, it's so true that doing this ourselves does help enhance empathy for our clients. I believe that too, Karen. I'm not saying I love that saying, eat your own dog food, but I never forgot it for sure. And I think it'll illuminate for you the questions that you want to ask your clients after you play with this a little bit for yourself. And see if you have some insights. Just because we're coaches doesn't mean we're always, setting goals for ourselves and taking great care of ourselves. An activity can help or not help depending on how we use it is helpful. Yes, absolutely. So you're referring to that social media example I gave, right? It's like, what's the motivation or why underneath the activity we're doing, and how much time and energy are we giving to it? And does that fit into this idea of having a pleasing or proportional overall big picture that looks good to us, right? So if we're spending too much of our time, like frittering too much of our time on activities that aren't meaningful and significant, it's like, okay, maybe I need to adjust that. Yeah. This model was life-changing for me, but I admit that the component of success I've never spent a lot of time on is legacy. And I want to touch on legacy today because it is International Coaches Week. And this is kind of like my little love letter to coaching during International Coaches Week. So as coaches, I think sometimes we might be aware of our impact, especially in the present moment, right? When we're with our clients, or maybe right at the end and we have a conversation about the impact of the coaching, or we have an ongoing conversation throughout the coaching. So sometimes we know what our impact is. And other times we don't know, especially long-term impact. We don't know what that is. What is our legacy? And I want to share a 5 years later email I got from one of my clients last year. It'll take me 2 minutes to read it. It's one client in 100 that sends an email like this. And I think it's pretty safe for, while I read this, for you to imagine that Charlotte was your client, because your clients are getting results like this too, even if you don't hear from them. Okay. But this is kind of the power of coaching. So I'm going to read this. Like I said, it'll take 2 minutes. And this is from Charlotte, and it's the title of the email. It's called Hello 5 Years Later. So she says, "Hi, Jen. I did career coaching with you in 2018, and I've been meaning to write to you for like 4 years. Clearly, need to work on my time management. I just wanted to say that I've been at a job I love and that aligns with my values for the past 4 years. I had applied for the role even though I didn't meet all the qualifications, which normally I'd have thought it just wasn't the right fit and I'll keep looking. But I applied anyway because of something you'd said, snagged the job, and have been crushing it ever since. When I came to you, I was in a romantic long distance relationship that I was too scared to let go of, even though it was frustrating and miserable most of the time. My sister was getting sick and only sicker by the day, a stressful and scary time for all of my family. But I only came to you because I was in a job that I couldn't stand with a boss that was overbearing and a company that I felt was all lies. So much has changed in the last 4 years, and I 100% attribute the career change as the catalyst that began a new sense of priorities and self worth for me. I truly think that with my change in jobs, I became more confident, but also more aware of what I cared about and how that could and would look personally and professionally. You helped me with that career change that became a life change. After the coaching, you were a voice inside my head that cheered me on, someone that made me more focused on my values and what they really looked like for me. You were a calm questioner that helped me recognize and confront my limiting beliefs, which I still battle, but at least can acknowledge and address because of tools you helped me with. This email is long overdue, but on good days at work and life, I remind myself to thank you for the work that you do. I can't imagine where I'd be if I hadn't gone outside of my comfort zone and attended coaching. I had put off looking for help for so long, and by being strategic and intentional with my time and coming to see you and invest in myself 5 years ago, my life has evolved for the better. I'm just so grateful for the time, energy, and wisdom you provided. Maybe there are many more like me that wait years to actually follow up and thank you. I hope not, but I am tremendously thankful, and it is about time you knew how much you were thought of and appreciated. Sincerely, Charlotte. So, on behalf of all the clients that you have not heard from, thank you. This is our legacy. This is the impact that we're having. And I am so grateful to be part of the coaching community that multiplies this impact by thousands. So we make a huge difference to people, and I want to acknowledge you and all of our colleagues during International Coaches Week. So thank you very much, and I wish you great success, whatever that means for you. So Anna, I invite you to come back in and help wrap this up for today. And thank you again for having me.
Jen, thanks so much. That was absolutely excellent and gave us so much to think about. I know it did for me, especially. I have personally a life map. And I have so many different components of the life map. But what was life changing for me is allocating the percentage of time to the domains. And so sometimes that balance, creating that balance was difficult because I'm thinking, oh, this percentage of time for this and this percentage of time for that. But it won't always be equal. That's just so life changing to consider what's important to us as well as our clients. Also, I'm just so impressed that you have shared with us from 2015 your life map. So important, so very important to reach back. I'm glad you did because we can see our growth. Because sometimes when people use this, they say, what are the measurable outcomes? How can I measure success, personal growth? And so you've shared that with us. When you hold on to things, you can see the priorities that shift and things that become more important. So thank you. This was very great, and we're seeing some in the chat are just so thankful for the letter that you shared and beautiful acknowledgement. So, for all of you, if you have any questions, please continue to put them in the chat. Legacy is also very important to me personally, Jen. So I'm so glad you ended with that beautiful letter. Sometimes you don't know the impact, and sometimes it's just that one that comes back to say thank you, but it's an encouragement of what we do, especially as coaches. So Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you for sharing with us this amazing presentation. We hope you'll come back and do more things with ICF Tennessee. We look forward to seeing you more. Thanks to our audience on Facebook Live, on Instagram Live, and also on Facebook Live for joining us today. Happy International Coaches Week. We appreciate you as coaches and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.